Hi everyone, this is the Recreate podcast with Michael and Teresa where we talk about our favorite TV shows. Today, we're going to discuss Hunted Season 3, Episode 5. For anyone who hasn't watched the show, there are spoilers ahead. Today, we're going to discuss how Romany and Chelsea slip the net, beach besties Jayde and Tayla, they get cornered by the hunters, Kaylie and Tony go cross-country in a bold move to get away from the hunters. If you missed the episode, you can catch all the action on 10 Play.
The sooner that we can get out of here, the better.
So we ended episode 4 with Romany and Chelsea being surrounded on all sides by hunters in Torquay. They're in the middle of the mall, they're asking for help, and we left it on that cliffhanger. And as we open episode 5, it seems that through serendipitous luck or brilliant editing, they slipped the net.
I have to say, the show is very good at creating these suspense moments where you feel like the hunters are just about to pounce on them, just around the corner, any moment. Romany and Chelsea could just get caught by Team Delta, and yet they slip away, and you realize it's actually not at the same time.
Yeah, some very clever cross-cutting and camera work. What they'll often do is just intercut two scenes that could have happened hours apart, and they'll, do a lot of off-camera work where the camera will focus on a hunter and then adjust to a mall just down out of vision and refocus to the mall, for example, and then cut from that mall to Romany and Chelsea. Just very, very clever filmmaking. We obviously don't know whether these two incidents were hours apart or even a day apart, but they're able to really make it condense the time, put them in the same place, and create tension.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy about watching Hunted is that it really does seem like it's very in the moment.
Very immediate, yeah.
And yeah, it's a great beginning to the episode.
And so Romany and Chelsea escape the net. They're free. After all that, we thought they were about to get done. They were right on their tail. They seem free for now.
Yay!
But while the farmer friends Romany and Chelsea are free for now, the beach besties Jayde and Tayla, unfortunately, their journey has come to an end. So, this episode, we're going to unpack what happened, where it went wrong. So let's rewind and retrace the steps and see where it went wrong for this couple who were doing really well up until this point.
I feel like Jayde and Tayla have been really good up to this point. They haven't used much technology, and they've actually relied on the help of strangers to get them through on their journey on the run.
Yeah, as they said, no tap, no trap. They didn't leave much of a footprint. Obviously, it's inevitable to come across some kind of CCTV, but they were really clever in all of their movements. They used their charm to build contacts and get accommodation. When they went on the buses, they didn't use their Mikey cards. They used cash. Really, really clever gameplay from them up until this point. But we see a little bit of a crack in their demeanor somewhat when they get into the car with Imogen and they're using the phone.
They're calling Bo McCreary.
Who's a Collingwood footballer. They call, I think, their aunt.
Auntie Kathleen, yes. But she didn't pick up the phone. And so they've had like two sources already bum out and was not able to help them. And I feel like they just felt psychologically stuck at this point because none of their resources and their contacts have actually come through.
Yeah, I feel they even say that themselves. Their brains can't turn off. They feel psychologically worn out. They've been on the run for a very long time, it seems. Well, at least a week, even though they were enjoying themselves in the front half of it. All of it is stressful. It must add up. And you can sort of see it wearing on their faces as their plans start to fall apart. They just want something familiar, something comfortable. And what do you know? They go to a direct contact. And at this point, we're introduced to Dr. Carla Lopez, who often comes in late in the series and just mentions something like, yep, they will be stressed. They will be making mistakes. She gives some good insight. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like she probably hasn't been much featured on the show compared to some of the other hunters.
Yeah, definitely not. And she talks about the stress on the run and how it's starting to gather on them.
While we don't have Dr. Carla Lopez on our show, we do have someone with all the answers, ChatGPT, to give us why being on the run is so hard.
Yeah, and so we pumped in these questions into ChatGPT. Why is being on the run so hard? And it gave us 5 very insightful answers. So firstly is the constant fear of capture, being on high alert, the stress, fearing the hunters or police are around the corner at any moment, not being able to relax.
And keeping in mind that this is stress that you keep experiencing 24/7, it's actually very crippling and it can really make you so emotionally tired from everything.
For sure. Think about when, you're studying for a test and the night before a test, the night before a big day, you would have that feeling constantly all the time, that sleeplessness. Number two is limited resources, so access to money, food, shelter, the creature comforts that we're all used to, your favorite foods, your favorite bed, your favorite TV shows, not being able to go shopping and
Yeah.
relax, all
And I
those things.
and I can imagine with Jade and Taylor, they seem like they're very healthy. They probably have like juice smoothies every day. They go for an exercise. They have their chia
Mm,
seed
mm.
pudding.
They
Yeah,
definitely look well
so
kept, yeah.
yeah, so like imagine like being on the run, you're probably, eating junk food, you're not sleeping right, you're not exercising, all that can really wreak havoc on your senses.
Yeah, and speaking of, socialization and the girls, isolation, number three. So having to cut ties with your friends, your family to avoid being traced. And this is, I think, one of the things that does them in. I feel like they kind of miss their family and friends. And that's what leads them to go to a direct contact.
It can be very, very lonely on the run, and a
Yeah.
lack of emotional support at a time when you cannot contact your friends is actually very hard.
Number four, difficulty in hiding. So modern technologies such as surveillance cameras, social media, facial recognition, all this stuff tracking you everywhere you go, law enforcement agencies having access to all of it. Yeah, really feeling trapped and cramped in.
It can feel really, really daunting.
Yeah, and number five, constant movement. So, like staying in hotels every other night, you probably forget where you are, forget the place you're at. There's a constant, similar to the first few points, you're constantly on edge because you're constantly on the move.
Yeah, and I think having all that cortisol in your system when you're experiencing this flight, fight, or freeze moment,
Mm,
it is, yeah, very crippling.
yeah. So there we have the 5 points from ChatGPT, and they all sort of come into play with Jade and Taylor, I think, who, they've done very well, but the stress of the show, it really starts to play on them.
So the girls managed to find a stay with their cousin Liam, but that's not before Imogen was actually approached by one of the hunters. And it really throws her off when the hunters invite themselves into the house. And you can see Imogen just getting very stressed. She was initially very good at stonewalling them.
Mm.
But when you are a teenager, I think Imogen seems like a teen here, and you are faced with someone who is
Authority and
of
that, yeah.
authority, older than you, it can be very hard to keep up your
Mm-mm.
pretense. Yeah, and
She
it would be
looks
very
like
intimidating.
Yeah, she looks like a kid that snuck back into the house after a night out. And she does a good job at stonewalling at first, but it's when they are able to reveal facts to her that it all comes crumbling down, such as what is this mattress doing on the ground, photos of on an iPad of the girls, and they're able to even identify all the cars that they use and the missing car at this very point, which is transporting the two girls. So when the hunters bring all this up, it clearly rattles her, just like a detective interrogating a suspect, putting the hard press on them.
To Imogen's credit, she keeps as cool as she can without giving too much away. And now the hunters are on to Ethan, who is Jade's brother. And this is a direct contact, which is very, very risky.
Yeah, he's got a beautiful name, Ethan Hunt from the Mission Impossible movies. Ben has no clue who that is. I don't know if he's putting it on or what, but come on. Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt.
Yeah, you would
Hello?
think that Ben, of all people, would be into
Yeah.
spy movies, especially one as famous
Dude.
as Mission Impossible.
It's like, that's your guy. I'd get him to play Ethan Hunt in a film. Anyway, he doesn't have any clue who Ethan Hunt is, and the hunters are onto Ethan. And Ethan does his best to stonewall them as well. He's got his arms crossed. He's trying to say as little as possible, but this is where the hunter's skill really comes into play. It's through what he doesn't say that gives away his intent and his feelings to the hunters. When they ask him, who's Liam, instead of just replying, yeah, my cousin, he doesn't say anything. And that tips them off that there's something to be had down this avenue. So, interesting ploy, and yeah.
It looks very, very suspicious, especially when you ask him, oh, and where does Liam live? And then Ethan's like, well, I don't know.
I don't know. So it's what he doesn't say that gives away the stuff just as much as something where he would give away all the intel. So very nice play by the hunters in questioning him, putting the pressure on, and making him give up secrets with his body language.
After the hunters leave, Ethan straight away calls up Liam, his cousin, and we find out that Jade and Taylor are indeed staying at Liam's house. What do you think about the reaction of the girls when they heard that call?
I thought they were kind of tired and over it. I mean, they pretty much knew the hunters were coming, it seems like, and they just seemed so exhausted that they
They
couldn't
did.
really comprehend what the meaning of and the consequences of that information was. Like, we've seen the girls in past episodes really glammed up, looking good, wearing makeup, dressed up. Here, not so much. And I think that reflects their fatigue and their level of stress, that they're just exhausted by this point because they are literally told the hunters are on the way. We have given them information. They know that you're with Liam, and they
and
don't. They're not spurred to action at all.
Yeah, they were just sitting there, and I was like, "Go, go! Are you like gonna run off or like walk away, with your bags?" But they just sit there, kind of like really tired. And like you said, I think their fatigue really reflects their psychological frame of mind, the way they look. They just look like they're over it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few frames where you see Taylor just sitting on the sofa. Her eyes are just bloodshot. She's just worn out, and the poor thing,
Yeah,
they're
and
just
rightly
tired.
so. I think being on the run is really, really stressful.
Mm.
I think it's easy for us to like sit here and just critique perhaps like their movements on the show, but we forget that how it really is in real life when you're an actual fugitive running away. It really wears you out.
I bet. And then we see the hunters knocking on the door of Liam, and yeah, knock knock. And I thought they had gotten away, but they just walk straight through their house because of how directly they walk in. And
We find out that the girls were just hiding in the cupboard.
yeah, it's a bit of an undignified and unglamorous exit. Very much a anticlimax after all that chasing.
Yeah, like brings back a flashback of Saddam Hussein back in the cave where he just gets captured like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's quite underwhelming, I think. I was actually expecting a chase or a run, something exciting.
yeah, it's a very meek exit. They open the cupboard and they're just sitting there as if they've been playing hide and seek. It's a bit of a sad way to go out.
And the response back at Hunter HQ is very celebratory.
Yeah, Vicky is so happy. There's been a bit of a frenemy vibe here, a bit of a confrontational rivalry here with Vicky. I mean, just to quote Vicky, I quote Vicky from Vicky, they love themselves and I'm sick of looking at their faces. These are direct quotes from Vicky.
Vicky hasn't been this happy since the end of Mean Girls when Regina George got hit by a bus.
Oh yeah, definitely some revenge here. She is so happy. I think Vicky's nightmare is like a TikTok video with Jayde and Tayla.
All three of them
Yeah,
dancing
all
in
three
it.
of them dancing. That must be her living nightmare. And we've never seen Vicky this happy. We get like 5 shots of her gleefully clapping her hands. It's over. She has won.
Yes.
Revenge.
She has 1.1 to Vicky. So we say goodbye to Jade and Taylor, beach besties. How would you rate their gameplay?
I would give them actually a solid B minus. They were doing really well up until the final day. Everything they were doing was top notch, concise, determined, clear. They were kept on the move. They were using disguises. They were avoiding technology. They were using separated contacts, strangers. They were using their social game, all the things available to them. They weren't making any mistakes. I think they just ran out of steam and they got tired. And you can see it on their faces after they're captured. They're more relieved rather than upset. And I think that speaks to the amount of stress that was on them at the time.
Yeah, I feel like you can really start to see the stress in their appearance because these girls, they look good all the time. They're always done up. But just in that last couple of days, they just seem really, really worn out.
So on to Kaylie and Tony, the rally duo. As Tony says, the higher the risk, the greater the reward.
I feel like that sums up his gameplay for this whole season.
Definitely his mindset, right? Like as a drift driver, the harder you go into a corner, the faster you get around that corner. That's just the way he thinks. He's on the edge all the time, and I think that's going to be his gameplay.
Yeah, and he has some really, really big ideas, really big moves. This whole track cross country from Leongatha to Iverloch to Warrego to Latrobe to Bendigo. I mean, that's like what, over 500 kilometers all in one day?
Yeah, it's audacious to say the least. So, what he plans in this episode is to get a lift through his pilot friend that he met at the rally meetup to go from Leongatha to Inverloch, which is where one of the finales of season one was ended, I think. And then from there to swap cars, go in the opposite direction, 70 kilometers away, up to Warrigal, swap cars again to the Latrobe Valley, where I think they hop into a plane, and then they fly 300 kilometers to the west to Bendigo. This is nuts. And this is, yeah, I don't know about digital footprint, but he's definitely leaving a massive environmental footprint.
At Hunter HQ, we find out that there's CCTV footage of the phone that was used to contact the taxi that Kaylee and Tony were in. And Sims calls Garrett, who's the owner of the phone, and tries to bribe him to discover the whereabouts of the fugitives. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it's quite an audacious play. I don't think Jarrett gives it up. And even if he does, there's not much that he can really give them because he doesn't have that much information. Jarrett doesn't actually know where they're going to go because they haven't disclosed any plans. So the bribe is ineffective in of itself.
And I feel like this is a really great play on Kaylee and Tony because they did use enlist the help of strangers. They
Yeah.
didn't use any of their close contacts to make any calls. And so the hunters are just left back to square one.
These guys are playing a really good game. And I think they may be overdoing it in terms of their travel. They're really leaving a massive footprint, as I said. And maybe the bigger the footprint, the bigger the risk. But they're really exploiting all the resources and contacts and, things that they have available to them, which is immense. These guys have a
Yeah.
lot of friends, a lot of contacts, a lot of friends with big vehicles that can get them all over the state at will. It's quite impressive.
And I feel like their decoy plan has actually added a very exciting element to the episode because it's not every day you get to see a fugitive on a plane escaping. And I think it's a great decoy plan because they would have traveled the most kilometers per day in hunted history if they can pull this off. Well, do you think this plan is risky, what they're doing?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's actually high risk, little reward. I think all this movement, all this commotion just creates more opportunities for the hunters to actually see them moving and doing stuff. And in the end, they're just going to move very far away, sure, but because they've used so many contacts and moved so much, they expose themselves to more witnesses, more CCTV, more phones, just more technology along the way that allows them to get used. But at the same time, Tony seems really, really savvy. So I'm sure he's planned all of this out. The pluses are that they're going to be somewhere in what, Bendigo, really far away from
Very,
the hunters.
very far
So
away.
if it does play out and they're able to leave no breadcrumbs, although there are a lot of, footprints of where they're going, if they happen to leave no breadcrumbs, then they are going to be completely off the radar and the hunters will have no clue of what they're
And
doing.
yeah, and I think this would be one of the probably milestones in like hunter history where they are showcasing their skills,
Yeah.
their contacts, something that they do, which is very exciting, which is in the rally cars culture. It's very, very exciting. I like it.
Yeah, and I think the show producers encourage them to make a move. That I'm sure the show doesn't allow the contestants, or at least encourages them, that every couple of days, hey, you need to do something. You
Yeah, and
can't
you have
just
to do
sit under a
something
tree.
exciting that makes viewers want to like, oh my god, this is something new.
This is something
We've
we haven't
never seen this
seen.
before.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I feel like the show deliberately also picks contestants who do have these resources to pull off something
That's
that
true.
daring.
That's a good point. I think they were specifically chosen because they are out there. They do have resources. They do have access to all these amazing vehicles and friends with planes. And just as we've seen with, say, Jayde and Tayla, who have access to a lot of friends, a large family network,
Famous friends.
famous friends. Joanna and Lee have a massive network. They've really highlighted players that really are socially broad and diverse and are able to really show us aspects of cultures that maybe we haven't seen before on television.
Yeah, and who are really willing to do dynamic gameplay,
Yeah.
and not just be boring, not just like sit around in the backyard gardening. They're moving from place to place.
Yeah,
And
and
good on them.
good on them because it would be the safe and smart thing to do to just sit there and do nothing for 20 days and capture that reward. But Yeah, you know what? I think Tony is right. It is high risk, high reward. The reward being good television.
Yeah.
That's what the reward is. So he's risking a lot, but the reward is he's giving us a lot of good television. So kudos, Tony, Kaylee. Yeah, I'm with you now. I
I
like
hope
your
to see
gameplay.
you guys at the end, definitely.
Yeah.
And now we see that Hunter HQ has gone through the Instagram of Kaylee and Tony. They've discovered that they could possibly be with Kate Raymond, who has actually picked them up from Inverloch and is now driving them to Warrego. What did you make about that leap?
That's exactly what it was. It was a leap because Kate lives an hour away, not even close to Melbourne. These guys have, I would presume, hundreds of contacts throughout Melbourne, as they've demonstrated. And yet, Hunter HQ are able to deduce or narrow down the list of potential suspects
And pinpoint it,
and
actually.
pinpoint it to her and her BMW. This, again, like Shelley with her mobile phone, I felt like this was an unsatisfying leap of logic. They didn't make that connection satisfyingly enough for the viewers. Maybe they did figure it out in Hunter HQ, but they need to show the process of thinking. For example, them eliminating all the potential suspects that they could have run into contact with, showing why Kate is the most likely, showing,
Yeah.
the logic of thinking. That just is good, like, good gameplay, firstly. And it's also what makes a good murder mystery. It makes a good thriller when the investigator is able to show the audience logical steps of thinking, okay? Rather than bang, the suspect is, Kate Raymond. I've got it, guys. There is no sequence of thinking here that satisfies the audience.
Yeah, I did feel like it was a very broad jump. Like suddenly we've just arrived at Kate Raymond just by looking on Instagram. When there's so many people on their Instagram, there are just so many leads to go off on,
Mm,
and suddenly we just come to this conclusion without actually any real evidence pointing them there. It,
yeah.
it, it does feel a little bit,
It feels like a bit of a cheat by the show,
yeah.
maybe. I don't want to accuse them of cheating, but when they don't show the progression of thought, it's the only natural conclusion that the audience can come to is that some producer has walked over to Simp's ear and gone, Kate Raymond, Google it, and give them a bit of a hint because they've shown nothing to preempt this.
Yeah, I think if they had shown like, a couple of suspects that they were eliminating, but then
Mm,
Kate just seems like the most likely possibility,
exactly.
then I think that would probably be a better scene.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a better
So
way
just
of
as a scene,
narration.
yeah, it was kind of unsatisfying, and we don't want to see the fugitives being cheated in this game. Just as much as we want the hunters to do well, and then the fugitives do, we want to see good gameplay, good cat and mouse gameplay that's fair on both sides. Obviously, they're making a TV show, so sometimes they need to push the drama, just like reality TV. Some things are going to get forced and a little bit artificial. We get that, but show the steps. Okay, and so now we're halfway through the show. And did you know back in 22, they used to actually have online betting for the winner of Hunted?
Oh, do they have it for 24?
No, they don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they used to have online betting for reality shows, which is wild to me because an editor or something like that could easily just whisper to their friend, hey, put the house on so and so. They still have it for
Survivor,
Survivor,
yes.
which is bizarre to me that you can bet on reality TV. But nevertheless, we're at the halfway point of the show and we thought we'd bring a TAB kind of mood to the show and put our betting odds on the remaining contestants.
Without actually encouraging anyone to gamble, because I don't think.
Yeah, gamble responsibly. Okay, so kicking off our odds, we have Romany and Chelsea at 50 to 1. What do you think of Romany and Chelsea at 50 to 1?
Yeah, I think for me they would probably be at the bottom of my list. I like the dynamic. I just felt like perhaps they've just made a few careless mistakes. They're quite
Hmm,
visible when they were in Torquay. I feel like maybe they are not very aware of like how much digital footprint they are leaving. They
yeah,
keep getting caught on CCTV,
yeah,
and so at the moment I feel like they have the highest probability of getting caught. But I
I
would
agree.
love to be proven wrong. So yes,
Yeah,
let's go
51.
from there.
I think they're at the bottom of my rankings too. I just think they've had a few close calls, and when they're moving around, they tend to leave a massive impression wherever they're going. So instead of just finding one person to stay with, they ask the whole of Torquay, "Can I stay
Yeah.
with you?" Which is just, now all of Torquay knows who you are, girls.
Yeah, and
You,
all the hunters need is just to print out some flyers,
yeah.
put them around town, and it would be very easy to identify them. So I feel like they're in some danger here. Well, what about Akech and Joe? Because we haven't actually seen much from them so far in these episodes. How do
Mm.
you rate their gameplay
I've
so
got
far?
them at the TAB betting odds at 30-1. So I think they are potentially good players, but I think their hubris and their personalities are going to have them undone. I think that Joe looks to be a bit of the weak link of the pair. He just can't help himself by putting himself out there. We've seen him trailers that he wants to do comedy gigs and taunt the hunters, and he hires limousines. Just very flamboyant stuff that in the long term doesn't really prescribe to me to being winning gameplay. I might be wrong, but I just feel like it doesn't seem like he's getting a winner's edit. Plus, we haven't seen much of them as well. So, a Catch and Joe, 30-1. If you want to lose your money, put it on a Catch and Joe. Ondine and Shelley at 10-1 is next on our betting rank. What do you think of Ondine and Shelley?
I really like them. I like the way that they're so supportive of each other. They look like they're best friends.
Mm,
I think Ondine, she definitely has the advantage because she has her Navy background.
yeah.
She seems very smart. And Shelley, I just like her overall exuberance. I think that they will go quite far. And I like the fact that they've always put on disguises wherever they go, so they can't be tracked so easily.
Yeah.
I think they're quite smart.
Yeah, and people forget, speaking of Shelley, I just thought of it, the dynamic of chemistry in a duo that's on the run. Having someone like Shelley who brightens the mood, who raises the mental health,
Morale.
morale of the mood, because I feel like Undine is maybe the strategic half of the duo, but Shelley seems to always put a lighter shade onto things, keeps the mood up, keeps them smiling, happy and healthy.
And that's really important
That's
when you're
super
on the run
important.
because you do need that morale booster, someone who's just lighter, who's able to see the lighter side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I think this is a dynamic duo. If you're going to commit a crime, make sure you bring a Shelley with you because it'll make things better being on the run. So 10-1, I have Undine and Shelley. Overall, though, their gameplay, they have had a few close calls, as everyone has really, but yeah, they do have a lot of strategic advantages as well. So I think they're an outside black horse to win this.
Yeah, and plus, I like the fact that they're kind of opposites. So I
Yeah,
feel
good
like
call.
rather than having two people who are very similar, and you can't see each other's blind spots, but because they're both so opposite, they can actually make use of the best of their contrasting qualities to get ahead.
Exactly. Yeah, really good point. Outside odds, now we have Kaylie and Tony at 6-1, our third favorite. These guys, man, I think they're a really good slot to win it. They have
Mm.
a grasp of technology, transport, massive social network. I really can't pick any flaws on them, to be honest. My only reason for having them as third favorites is that they are getting featured moving a lot and getting a lot of pings as to their movement.
And as Tony says, like, the riskier it is, the greater the reward. So he is doing some risky moves. I'm
Yeah.
sure they're very calculated, but sometimes you don't know. Maybe one of them might just, like slip up.
Exactly. Like going to the rally and getting photographed at that rally was a slip up. Um, Having a witness at the taxi was a slip up. Everyone along the show has made a mistake and is going to make mistakes. So there's no deductions there. But I just feel like the hunters are really closing in on them by the way things are being constructed. So Kaylee and Tony come in third at 6-1. And now we have our two favorite teams to win it. Andy and Deb and Luke and Ben at 3-1, equal betting favorites. So let's start with Andy and Deb, the high school sweethearts from SA.
I really, really like them. I love their dynamic. They're such a cute couple. I hope we'll be like them, when we grow, older, yeah. They're just very sweet. They seem very supportive. I think we've also seen Andy celebrate Deb's birthday.
She looks amazing for her age.
Yeah.
That photo with her daughter, it looks like her sisters. I couldn't tell which was the daughter and which was the mother. That whatever she's on, whatever cream and placenta that she's melting down to rub on her face, I want some. She looks 20. She's incredible. Deb, if you ever listen to this show,
Tell us your
beauty
secret.
secrets. You look incredible for your age. So do you,
Yeah.
Andy. That Eminem haircut really suits you. But yeah, the high school sweethearts doing really well. We haven't really seen them sweat yet, have we?
No, and they've been very smart. They've actually gone incognito, like, just all out with strangers. They've gone out rural, they've been camping, and it seems like they've got very good gear as well. So they
Yes.
know what they're doing. They're not amateurs at this.
They've definitely gone off grid and are laying low. They're putting on disguises. They're dyeing their hair.
Yeah.
They're doing what it takes to lay low. And I think given their long-term history with each other, they're used to, they're high school sweethearts. I think
Yeah,
they'll
I'm
be
sure
able to.
they've been through a lot
They've been
together.
through a lot. I think they'll be able to handle the stress of what comes next. And so
Yeah.
that's why I think, and also the fact that they haven't been featured much
Yeah.
is why I think that they are at the top of our betting favorites.
Yeah, well, their gameplay hasn't been as flashy as some of the others, like say Kaylee and Tony, or even Ondine and Shelley. I feel like they have the right mindset to,
Mm.
like being like a real fugitive. Like, well, as Deb has shown, I mean, she is the daughter of an actual real life fugitive.
Yeah, true. I forgot about that. Yeah. I think this is really a game to her. She's not really feeling the stress. I think given her past life experience, she's really embracing this with an open and light mindset.
And I like that she's trying to relive perhaps the experiences of her dad, and in a way, maybe it brings her closer to him.
Oh, I think we're going to get some really emotive edits out of that in
Yeah,
the future.
I feel
That'll
like
be
that
cool.
could be a really good hero's
Mm.
edit, like,
Mm.
in the lead up to the finale.
Mm. And our final betting favorite, the ones I think actually have a slight advantage to win it, are
Husbands
Luke.
from Victoria.
Husbands from Victoria, Luke and Ben, give it up. You guys have been through so much already and you're still here. These guys are on a winning edit, I feel like, and they just look. They are the couple that goes through everything and still survives.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they've been separated. One of them Ben has put himself up for sacrifice. Then we find that they've been reunited amid a lot of tears, plus, the skin dye as well. And I feel like they just have what it takes to support each other through all the way to the finale.
Very light-hearted, very supportive of each other. You see Ben supporting Luke in his beauty routine. He's okay with him bringing a tanner on this journey on the run. They just seem like a really good couple. I think
Yeah.
that ultimately is what plays into this game. Like having good support for each other,
Yeah.
having good mental health,
Mm.
being able to not make mistakes while pressure is mounting.
Mm,
And
mm,
so
mm.
good, solid, supportive couples tend to do really well on this show.
Yeah,
Is
and
the
they
only way to put
inject
it.
a lot of comedy, I think, into
Yeah.
the series. Without them, we would not have so much laughs. Like I think I am really rooting from them, and also from past seasons, we can see. I think there's always been at least one half of a gay couple that has kind of made. I'm
The
sorry,
gays
I'm
are
not,
good
I'm
at this.
Yeah, they're just
The
very,
ga-
very good at
The
this.
gays are good at this show. Okay, it's a
Yeah.
compliment.
Yeah, it's a compliment. So
Okay.
it's not meant to be a stereotype or anything, but they're very social. They're very outgoing.
Shout out to Staffy.
Yeah, and they're very resilient.
And so I think that the networking, the social game, the fortitude, the resilience, all of these qualities that Luke and Ben have, it's very reminiscent of past winners on the show, like Staffy. And so I think they're going to go very far. Plus, they've already been through a shitload and they're still surviving. Not to mention they are very good at slipping the net. I wouldn't say they're the most careful couple, okay? They have made some very severe mistakes,
Yeah.
like
Going to the chemist.
going to the chemist, a lot of carelessness here and there, but somehow they are able to land on their feet like a cat every single time and just slip things with their intuition and their instincts each time. They've got spidey senses or something.
Or Lady Luck just really likes them a lot.
Lady Luck really likes them a lot, and as do we. And so there we have our odds for the winning team for Hunted. Who knows? It might be one of the two, it might be both, it might be multiple teams, but those are our odds. Tell us what you think and let us know how you feel. So that was episode 5, season 3. What did you think of the episode?
It's a really great episode. I can't wait to see what's in episode 6 because I want to see how Kaylee and Tony's great decoy plan pans out.
Yeah, and we get to see a little bit more of a Ketch and Joe coming up, so we're looking forward to that. We haven't seen as much of them as we would have liked, but that's all coming up.
And this is a wrap up. Thank you so much for listening to the show. This is the Recreate podcast by Michael and Teresa. You can find us on Recreate on TikTok and Instagram. That's WRECK.CREATE, where you can watch highlight videos of what we've talked about. If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe to our pod. It really helps us a big deal, and we are extremely grateful for any support you give. We'll be back shortly with the next episode. Stay tuned.
Bye.